21 points, 15 points, 14 points, 13 points, and 13 points. What you just heard there were not running back one numbers or running back two numbers. Those were our top 5 defensive scores in week 2 fantasy football. So if you do not understand the importance of fantasy defense to your team, I don't know what to tell you at this point. But we go through it every week, and now we're going through the week 3 top 12 fantasy football defenses. And I'm one of the only creators who covers defense multiple times a week, so please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first tier, I really love a couple of these defenses here. The Buffalo Bills are my number 1 defense though, and they are taking on the Miami Dolphins. And listen, I want to also discuss them in conjecture with the Green Bay Packers, because I do think that based on your preference, they are interchangeable, and I think that you should go with your gut on who you think is the better defense this week. But my opinion is this: if you look at the history of Buffalo Bills versus Miami matchups, particularly with Josh Allen, it's really scary. I mean, Miami is atrocious. They get brutalized every single game, and I just don't see that on a Thursday night, on a short week, they're going to come with much fire in this one, considering they're coming off another emotional loss. And just the history in this matchup is so bad. The Bills defense had a great week last week against the New York Jets, and I expect them to brutalize another divisional opponent at home on Thursday night. And then the Green Bay Packers, like I just said, they are definitely one of those defenses that you could put at number 1. Like, I think it's either between them and the Bills as the number 1 defense this week. I think the Falcons are great, but they do not line up with those two. The Packers defense, they play the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. And obviously, the matchup is fantastic, right? You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that that matchup is excellent. But what you do see is that their defense, either way, is fantastic. They've been great against 2 viable opponents in the first 2 weeks. Detroit's offense and Washington's offense, they made them look like JV teams. Like, they were awful in those games. I think that pass rush with 8 sacks this year so far is going to be vicious against Joe Flacco. So for that reason alone, it's going to be a blowout. You have to put the Packers inside of the top 2. Those 2 are the easiest selections this week. And then number 3 to round out this tier, Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Listen, I debated putting them down in a tier below them just to highlight the fact that they are not on the same level this week as the Packers and the Bills. But I couldn't bring myself to do it because the Falcons defense has been excellent. They're the number 1 defense right now, by the way. Now, most of it came from Minnesota because they were playing a bad quarterback. Yes, J.J. McCarthy sucks. And this week, they're playing another bad quarterback. I mean, I'm willing to say Bryce Young is not any good either. And the Falcons defense got after Minnesota's offense last week with 7 total sacks on the season now, and they had 6 in last week versus Minnesota. I think that the Falcons defense is going to be really scary for a lot of teams, and especially when you get a divisional opponent that's as weak as the Panthers, I expect the Falcons to be really good in fantasy, which is why they had to be in tier 1 after deliberation. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Seahawks defense, who is taking on the New Orleans Saints at home this week. They've also been fantastic. In 2 weeks, they put up 4 sacks and 4 interceptions. Now, a lot of them, again, came from Aaron Rodgers, but some of them did come from Brock Purdy in week 1. And Spencer Rattler, I will say this, they have not been as bad as I thought they were going to be, and probably as many of you thought they were going to be. The secret is they can still move the ball. And if you want to know the reason the Seahawks aren't in tier 1, it's because of that reason alone. The Saints actually are well coached offensively, and while they don't have the talent, and the quarterback talent particularly, they still can move the ball and put up points. So I do still think that will be a factor this week with the Seahawks, but I also just look at the Seahawks defensive talent, the way they've been getting after quarterbacks, and just the Saints' overall lack of talent offensively, and I've got to put them at number 4 easily. And at number 5, I've got the Chiefs defense going to New York to take on the Giants on Sunday night. Now, I think that there's a couple different factors to this one. Number 1, they're not on the same playing field as the Seahawks either. So I want to make that clear. You cannot interchange the Seahawks and the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense is just not as good. Now, they've taken on 2 very tough opponents to start, and they do have 5 sacks to show for it, which is really good between 2 games. But I will say this, the Chiefs defense is not exactly one that I think has always been fantasy relevant, because in most scenarios, they're not generating the big plays necessary for fantasy production. You've got one forced fumble, but outside of 5 sacks, there's nothing to show for here. Now, the Giants, they're coming off a brutal loss, and I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball the same way like they did last week. So I do think that the Chiefs are definitely going to be our number 5 defense this week because they're going to be searching for a big win. And the Vikings defense is at 6 versus Cincinnati. Listen, people may disagree with me on this, and I can hear you out. Jake Browning definitely did come in and play good football. Because here's the secret, Browning is actually a good backup quarterback. He legitimately is. He did this a couple years ago for Burrow. He's actually solid. And the Bengals obviously have tons of offensive talent. But I think this Vikings matchup versus the Bengals is going to be a relatively lower scoring one. And bottom line is this. Even though the Vikings got trampled on last week by the Falcons, they still have 5 sacks on the year, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumbles recovered. Brian Flores is an aggressive defensive coordinator that you cannot overlook on any given week. I do think that without Joe Burrow this week, there will be less points, and I think that the Vikings can get after this offensive line with their pass rush. So I do expect the Vikings to be inside tier 2 this week. And if you're still looking for your defensive claim this week, well, listen, there's always a mad dash at 3 in the morning after the initial waivers run to go grab the remaining players for free. What we have down at FS Roundup is automate that process for you so you can sleep through the night and also beat all the other guys who are waking themselves up to go get those players. And you can join FS Roundup by going to the link in the comments below and joining the premium subscription tier for the automatic waiver wire tool, where you'll get a 12-day free trial to try out the waiver wire, see the value in it, and then you can also get a full team breakdown from me after your 12-day free trial is over. This is a great deal. You guys need to hop on it because the waiver wire at this time of the year is extraordinarily important. And the last thing you want to do is end up looking like a guy like this.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh no.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Buccaneers defense at number 7. And the reason why is because they're playing the New York Jets. Listen, the Bucs defense has not been good. I mean, this is a defense I had pegged all offseason as not being a good defense. And the irony of it is that Todd Bowles, I do think, is a solid defensive coach. Now, they did get after the Houston Texans the other night with 4 sacks on the season now. But outside of that, again, you're just not seeing many big plays. But given the fact that the Jets offense, with or without Justin Fields, just simply isn't good enough, I can't see the Jets putting up more than 13 or 16 points in this game. And without there being some mistakes made, because they just showed how prone they are to making mistakes versus the Buffalo Bills last week. I expect this to be another matchup that the Jets lose, and I think that the Bucs will just be pouring on points to the point where the Jets are going to have to take chances and they're going to make mistakes. I've got the Bucs defense at 7, and the Chargers defense is at number 8, and they're taking on another test this week versus the Denver Broncos. Their first 3 games are division games, and they have dominated all of them. Now, Kansas City obviously put up a fight. But the Raiders, they smoked them. Had 3 interceptions versus Geno Smith, and they also got pressure on him as well. The Chargers defense is legit, and the irony is that they have been weakened. I mean, Khalil Mack probably will not be seen again this season, and they were also missing other linebackers as well. So that's the reason they're lower, because I really do think they're a good defense. Now, the other reason they're lower is because I think Denver is going to be pissed in this game. They actually should have won that game, and Denver's offense looked much better last week. But I do think that with the Chargers, just them looking as dominant as they are, I do expect them to win the game and also force mistakes off of Bo Nix and maybe even keep them a little bit lower scoring than many people may think. The 49ers defense is at number 9 to round out this tier, and they're taking on the Arizona Cardinals this week at home. Now listen, the 49ers defense has done pretty well this season so far, and they've taken on a bunch of division divisional opponents as well. The 49ers defense has had 4 sacks through the first 2 games, and they've also had 3 fumbles recovered on 4 forced fumbles. You know what that's a product of? That is a product of Robert Saleh as your defensive coordinator. It's a game changer. And Arizona's offense, being as hot and cold as it is, especially against divisional opponents, this feels like it could be too low of a ranking this week. But I'm not going to rank them much higher because the 49ers are still a team that I don't fully trust yet defensively to make a bunch of other plays and hold teams to lower scoring games. So I think the Cards could be an easy matchup the 49ers cruise to victory in and put up a great defensive performance in fantasy, or it could be one of those higher scoring matchups in an NFC West matchup. Now, dropping down to our last tier, I've got the Colts defense at number 10, and they are going to Tennessee this week to play the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Colts defense, they're okay in fantasy right now. The Colts team is a big surprise as a whole. They've looked really good through the first 2 weeks. And the first week, I thought it was just because Miami sucked. No, they came to play versus the Denver Broncos. Now they go take on the Tennessee Titans, who are definitely in sad shape right now, but I think are getting better. And that's the reason they're not higher on this list, because I expect Tennessee to play their best game of the season. That being said, Cam Ward has taken sacks this year, and he has also made mistakes. And given the Colts have 3 interceptions this year already and 3 sacks, this is a defense that you definitely want in fantasy football right now. They're just not inside the first 3 tiers. At number 11, I've got the Broncos defense, and they are going to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Again, this is a matchup that I think could get a little sloppy. Now, I will say this. There's a couple things that are giving me grace with the Broncos defense this week. Number 1, I still believe in that talent over there. I think that they definitely got caught off guard by the Colts, but I still believe in the talent. They have 7 sacks through 2 weeks, and they have 2 forced fumbles and fumbles recovered. This is a good defense right here. I still fully believe that. Number 2 is because I do think that even though the Chargers have looked really dominant offensively, that there is weaknesses there still. The running game is not efficient right now, and if you get Pat Surtain to lock up one of those receivers, it's going to change the game. So I do think that this Broncos team will come out ready to go this week, and they will play a better game in fantasy than they did in week 2. And our last defense, this is going to be a shock. The Ravens defense, they're taking on the Detroit Lions at home on Monday night. Now, obviously, this one comes way out of left field, right? Like, you would never want to rank a defense that's playing the Detroit Lions in most scenarios, given that they just put up 50-plus points on the Chicago Bears. There's a couple of reasons why this is a good play. Number 1, if you go to Vegas right now and look at all the different Vegas sites, every one of these sites has favored the Baltimore Ravens, which is fine. But then you look at the spread on it. It's 5 points, 5.5 points, 4.5 points. That seems like a pretty big spread, right? Well, then you come to find out the fact that Lamar Jackson is 24-4 against NFC teams. Now, obviously, you might ask me, what does that have to do with the Ravens defense, right? Well, the fact of the matter is, if the Ravens are pouring on points with the Detroit Lions, the Lions are going to have to take more chances, and Goff will make mistakes. I think this pass rush gets after Goff in this game, and I think they get a couple of picks off of Goff. I think he regresses from where he was last week, and this is not to say the Lions won't put up points in fantasy. I believe they will, but I do believe that the Lions will give up enough as far as turnovers go, and maybe even sacks to that Ravens front 7 to where the Ravens are a top 12 play this week. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below, and if you want to see the top 30 wide receiver rankings for week 3 fantasy football, click on this video right here.